1 2 1 2 Blood Red Podcast. 1 2 1 2 Blood Red Podcast. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. Hello and welcome to the Blood Red Podcast from the Liverpool Echo, a hastily arranged Blood Red Podcast. I'm Joe Rimmy, your host, joined today by Paul Gorst. Plenty to talk about. It's only going to be a little mini pod, but we thought we'd come here live because it's been a busy old day for you. Before we set off, though, a big thanks to our sponsors, NordVPN, who help us do what we do. We really appreciate their support, and please go and check them out. Really help out if you travel a lot, if you want a bit more security on some of the purchases you're making online. They're great to have in your pocket. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodreg, and our link gives you 4 months extra free on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link will be in the podcast episode description box. We are live on YouTube, so if you've got a question, I'll keep an eye on them, so drop it in the comments there. If you're listening elsewhere, give us a review or some stars, or let us know your thoughts. We really appreciate it, and thanks for all your support. Gorsty?
Yes, I'm not being rude. I am just forwarding this onto my Facebook because it's live. So
yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So try and expand our audience even further.
Yeah, but well, I won't blame you for being on your phone today because you've been a very busy man. You had to run from your lunch as well.
Yeah,
so,
I did. Yes.
Yeah. It's all going off. So we'll start with Chiesa. We'll talk a bit about Nunez in a bit. But Liverpool have agreed a transfer fee for Federico Chiesa. He's on his way to Merseyside. What can you tell us about the deal and where it's up to?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He was on standby waiting to fly to Merseyside for his medical. A 4-year deal, we believe, has been agreed, and a transfer fee of close to £11 million, which, considering Liverpool has just sold Bobby Clark to Red Bull Salzburg for 10, is probably in the ballpark of it being an absolute steal. Certainly if they can get him back to the form he showed a few years back in the Euros when he was one of Italy's main men, and they obviously went on to win it, beat England in the final. He was superb that tournament, certainly Italy's best attacking player. But it hasn't quite gone to plan since then for him, as he had a bad injury in 2022 in January of that year, kept him out for 9 months. And then 1 or 2 knocks along the way, sort of presenting this narrative that he is injury prone. But he's 26, he's still got a few good years ahead of him. If Arne Slot and the coaching team there can get him back to anywhere near that sort of form that he was at in the Euros, and the form that convinced Juventus to pay, over 40 million for him in 2020 from Fiorentina, then it could be one of the shrewdest moves at the window.
I mean, this was a guy who was being linked with people 2 years ago, because Juventus got him on that 2-year loan that we were just talking about before. But he was being linked with people for 80, 90 million. Yeah. This isn't... I mean, I know he's been linked with a move away all summer, but it comes as a bit of a shock, doesn't it, when you read 12 million. I mean, we were talking in the office before about some of the players they've paid around that fee for, and you can go back years to, I mean, the world's greatest player, Emil Heskey, they got him. The youth, people like this.
Cisse, more than Cisse, or less than Cisse.
I mean, so many players that they paid around that for, and as you say, they sold Bobby Clark. So it feels like a risky one, but surely it's a risk worth taking, isn't it, for Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, look, they just sold Fabio Carvalho there for 22 million, which could rise to 27.5. It's about half of what they're going to pay for Chiesa, or twice as much, as they're going to pay for Chiesa. And Carvalho's a young player with plenty of ceiling to improve, but is he better than Federico Chiesa now? I'd argue no. And that's Chiesa who hasn't really pushed on in the way it looked like he was going to when he was sort of 23. So, yeah, there's loads of upside to this. It's not one where Liverpool are really risking it in terms of, coming in and they need him to be fit and firing and a top player immediately, in the way that sort of Balotelli was, another Italian player who come in and Liverpool he had to be a hit straight away, and he wasn't, was he? And this is different in terms of him coming in as backup initially to Mo Salah, to Luis Diaz. He's versatile, he can play across the front line, but I think it'll be able to rest Salah more frequently. Salah obviously wants to play every minute of every game, but Slot's already shown that he's prepared to take big players off at key moments of games, isn't it? Trent, Salah and Jota all went off, didn't he? At 2-0 on Sunday, and it's all about preserving the legs and making sure that they're fit and firing at the business end, because I think that undoubtedly hurt Liverpool so much towards the back end of last season when so many players just looked exhausted and injured and unfit. So if they can keep the key men fit and fresh for the business end, then that's going to be vital, I think. And Chiesa is someone who means that if Mo Salah doesn't play in a Premier League game, the drop-off is not going to be quite as great as it is to someone like young Ben Doak, who's still cutting his teeth in the game, isn't he, with respect to him. The drop-off to most players, and Salah is huge, but I think Chiesa just sort of meets in the middle there, so it's not a huge drop-off, and that can only be good for Liverpool, I think.
I've wanted Liverpool to take a few more risks. We know how they go in the transfer market. It is quite often, go after one player, and if you don't get that player, then we move on and wait for maybe the next window or someone else to become available further down the line. But you don't often see them see a deal and go, you know what, we'll have a go at this, and this feels like one where they've thought price, player, age. I mean, he turns 27 in October. We were talking before, Salah only came to Liverpool when he was 25, almost 26. So he's at a good age, going into his prime. Do you get the feeling this is one where they've tracked it all summer and thought, if we leave this late, we could perhaps get this player for a good price?
Yeah.
Or is it one where they've got to the end of the window and gone, we've not done much business, who's available, let's go in and get him? What do you think? How do you think this is played out?
Only Richard Hughes and the inside, power access will know the exact answer to that. But I'd like to think it's one where they've been a bit calculated and thought, well, we'll give this a few weeks, and then they wait and see how little they can get him for. It's like a opportunistic strategy, which has obviously become the buzzword of the summer, hasn't it? Richard Hughes said it in the press conference at the start of July that was going to be the way Liverpool operated, and if they've got 5 fit and ready forwards in Salah, Nunez, Jota, Gakpo and Diaz, there's no real need for them to target them straight away, and they don't need to sort of panic. They can be a bit more strategic and a bit more cerebral about it, and that seems to be what they've done. So now they've waited until the final days of the window, and Juventus are desperate to get a fee for him because, well, 2 reasons really. He's a high earner in Italian football. I think Juventus confirmed on their site, well, they did confirm on their site last year that he earns €5 million a year, which is around £80,000 a week, which is big money in Italian football. They don't have the kind of money that's awash in English football, do they? So Juventus don't want to pay his salary for a year, and they don't want him to leave for a free next summer. So that's why Liverpool have been able to nudge in and pay, 11 million for him. I was looking on Transfermarkt this morning, obviously influential football website that people in the industry use, and they value him at €35 million. So Liverpool are getting an absolute steal, whether or not he can sort of get back to those levels that saw him touted as a £70-80 million player.
I've seen some people worrying about his wages, but I mean, first of all, Liverpool got a lot of players off their wage bill this summer. We saw a lot of high earners, Thiago being one, but Matip would have earned quite a lot as well.
And even last summer as well, Milner and of course, Henderson, Fabinho, even Firmino.
Even people think Klopp.
Yeah,
Klopp would have been a very high earner, and I'm sure Arne Slot, I'm sure he's earning decent money, but he won't be earning the same as Klopp. So, Liverpool have brought that wage bill down by a considerable amount. And we also know that Liverpool always structure their wages to be bonus related, don't they? The better you play, the better you'll earn. And surely for Liverpool, there'll be structure in this deal so that it benefits all parties. If he fulfills his potential, then he'll earn money with Liverpool, won't he?
Yeah, I think Diogo Jota's become the sort of poster boy for that strategy. You come in on a certain wage, and then you improve, you get rewarded for that, and then there's still scope for you to improve further. And I think that'll probably be the message for Chiesa. He's not coming in as an absolute superstar, is he? Where he'll be demanding X amount of money in the same way that Thiago was 4 years ago. He's coming in having had a difficult sort of 18 months to 2 years, But knowing that the quality is there for him to improve his bottom line, and I'm not concerned about the wages thing at all. I think Liverpool have freed up so much money across the last 2 years. They've added to it, of course, with McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch and Endo, but I'd argue that none of those are near the top brackets at Liverpool in terms of wages. So there's plenty of room to manoeuvre there on the wage bill, and plenty of room to manoeuvre in the transfer budget as well. Let's face it, Liverpool don't like to talk numbers for that sort of stuff, but the money is there, particularly now they're back in the Champions League.
Yeah. I mean, a lot's been said about his injury record, but it feels like one that is sort of a lazy label that people throw on it. Is injury prone. I mean, this is just one tweet from Lewis Bower before, but he played more league minutes last season than Szoboszlai, Nunez, Gomez, Endo, Robertson, Gakpo, Alexander-Arnold, Konate, Elliott, Jones, Jota, Gravenberch, Tsimikas. So this isn't someone who last season didn't play much football. He played a lot of football last season, and he had that ACL injury a couple of years ago, but obviously it takes some time to get back from that. We've seen that Van Dijk take some time to get back into form. But the reason that he's not playing at Juventus is that he's been left out. Our work experience students with us today, and he's been talking to some Italian journalists to get a bit more on his background, and they said it was simply a style thing, that Motta, Thiago Motta, who's come in this summer, just didn't fancy his style and decided, like many managers do early doors, he's not one for us, and we'll sell him. So that's the reason he's been left out, and the injury thing seems to be a bit of a myth, really.
Yeah. I mean, he played 37 times last season, all competitions. I think 33 in Serie A. So that's almost every week, isn't it? So yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned with that. The big one is obviously the ACL, kept him out from January to November, I think. But we've seen what happens with Van Dijk, and maybe to a lesser extent Gomez. You can get back to your best once you've got up to speed, and I think the good thing for Liverpool, like I say, is they don't need him to be absolutely top drawer straight away. I think he'll just become a really sort of shrewd squad option that will be used sparingly, I'm sure. And if they can get him near his 2021 form, then he's going to be banging on the door to replace Diaz or whatever in that forward line.
He's versatile, isn't he, as well? He can play. I think he's played second striker. I think he's played attacking midfielder. So I could almost see them playing him in the sort of Szoboszlai roles, maybe against teams that you sit deep. You're trying to break down. Obviously, as an alternative Salah, and he can play on the left as well. So he's got that about him. I follow a guy called Jimmy on Twitter, whose Twitter handle, for anyone interested, is at BORBELY_IMRE. He's a football data analyst for XFB. Says I don't know too much about them. He's from Hungary, but he's a really good follow. Tweets loads of really interesting graphics and stuff like that. And he's tweeted Federico Chiesa's pizza chart.
Oh, the pizza chart, yeah.
I do love a pizza chart. There's no pineapple on his pizza chart, which is disappointing.
That's what I was looking at when I called him for my lunch.
Yeah. I mean, it basically is a guy who carries the ball really well, creates a lot, takes a lot of touches in the final third, a lot of touches in the box, gets shots away. Probably isn't always the most accurate with some of those shots and passes, but certainly is involved in a lot of attacking play. I mean, pretty much all of those attacking metrics are towards the end. So it just looks like I just think it looks like a really clever deal, whichever way you look at it.
Are you concerned that Liverpool's history with Italian players has been checkered, to say the least? I mean, it's a talking point, but it's also not relevant in the same sense, if you get what I mean.
I just think one of them, it is what it is, isn't it? They haven't signed good Italian players, but then Dossena, they've not gone out and signed Maldini or Pirlo or Vieri. They've signed Balotelli, Dossena. I mean, what's their record with, I don't know, I'm picking
Hungarians,
exactly. Bad. Well, exactly, isn't it? So to me, it's a bit of a non-starter. I think. I think they haven't signed well. But
this is the guy who's the star of Italian football, wasn't he? A few years ago. Okay, there's not quite as sort of, the names that reel off the tongue as the sort of 2000s and 90s, but he's certainly got pedigree, and I just think just to have as a real serious squad option, I think it's a really wise move. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding and all that sort of stuff, but as a low risk, calculated gamble, the opportunistic approach, as we keep hearing about, I think it's I think it could be really smart, actually.
Yeah, I'm really pleased about it. I'm pleased that Liverpool have finally taken gambles. I've wanted them for years to take a few more gambles, and you see, you don't want them to gamble on big money like, say, Man United or Chelsea do. I wouldn't touch a sterling because of the money that would cost, the money that he's on. But this just makes a lot of sense. I remember him from that Euro tournament, and just remember thinking he looked powerful, tall. You don't see many attackers his height that can run with
He's quick, isn't he?
With the same quickness and power that he does. So, I'm really, really excited to see him in action. A few people saying, "Do you think he'll feature versus Man United?" I think he's got a shot at being on the bench.
I mean, Liverpool haven't officially signed them or anything yet, so there's still a few T's to be crossed and
there's
to be
that
dotted,
medical to be taken as well.
Yeah. So I'd be surprised if he was. Even all five are fit at the moment, aren't they? Yeah. And I think it might take a few weeks. Yeah, he hasn't really been being played. He hasn't played any Juventus game this season, as he wasn't involved in pre-season either, really. So it might take a few weeks yet before he's up to speed. I wouldn't expect him to be involved at Man United.
Yeah, and as you say, you keep saying it doesn't really need to be, does he? The great thing about this for Liverpool is, we know they need other areas, and I'd like to see them sign a midfielder, a defender certainly, and I think we know they would have signed a midfielder this summer, and that hasn't happened for a couple of reasons. But with this, it strengthens in an area where they're already strong, and yet they can ease him in. They can make sure he's tactically up to speed. Yeah. Fitness wise, they can check on him and make sure he's up to speed. Like you say, he's still got to pass a medical, and I think that's a big one. And especially with such a big injury in the past, Liverpool will do their homework and make sure that's checked properly.
Yeah. I mean, I've been sort of banging the drum for a while about the need for a sixth option because of Liverpool are back in the Champions League now, so it's going to be harder to rest and rotate as much with the step up in quality for the European games, and obviously there's more of them as well with the new format. So I've always been of the belief that Liverpool would need a sixth option, and kind of accepting that it's not going to be a 80-90 million pound addition to the squad. But this one to me seems very much in keeping with what I've sort of had in my own mind, really. A bit of a player with quality who's coming in and accepting his place in the squad for a relatively modest fee and potential and room for growth. So yeah, I'm excited about it, really. Just I just think now possibly another one to come in elsewhere, and then I think you're looking at this squad as a real squad that can challenge. We know Man City's hearing for the 115 charges is November, and whatever the fallout from that's going to be, we've got no idea, have we? But if it does result in serious sanctions for City, then it could really open up for Liverpool and or Arsenal. And I think if Liverpool just left themselves a bit short to capitalise on that, I think they'd really kick themselves.
Look, I'm still worried about defence and midfield because of the injury problems, and Gravenberch has done well there, but that's against Ipswich and Brentford at home. So I still think they are areas that we might be debating come October, November. But I fully agree on having those strength of options up front, and I think it says as well that Klopp was willing to put faith in youth at times.
Yeah,
I think the things that I was reading and hearing about Arne Slot is that he's not going to just give out appearances to young players, and I think we've seen that this summer, that some of the young players are going, and also that someone like Ben Doak can go out and play a full season somewhere. Don't make 5 appearances for Liverpool. Go and make 35 appearances, whether that's in the Championship or lower down the Premier League. Someone's just corrected me, by the way. It turns out the Chiesa is 5'7", so I don't know where he's tall for me anyway.
It does look like he's quite tall.
Apparently not. So yeah, I'd still look up to him, but maybe you wouldn't find him so tall. But even so, he's got some great statistics. So all round it just looks like a really clever one from Liverpool, and like they might have pulled off a bit of a masterstroke. And maybe this is the first hint, isn't it, that Richard Hughes has got those contacts. I mean, you've talked about all summer that Spain and Italy might be two areas that you might look at. And
so far he has. Chiesa and Mamardashvili.
Zubimendi,
yeah. Both interesting, aren't they, in their own way. The Mamardashvili one raised a few eyebrows, I think it's fair to say, because it looked like Liverpool were prioritising a thing which was maybe like 8th or 9th or 10th on the to-do list, but they got it over the line. I loved the fact that Alisson spoke out about it last week and said that he sort of encouraged that, and he's talking about potentially staying on, a new contract and all that sort of stuff, and I think that was huge for the supporters. Don't know whether that was, obviously he was put up for the game to speak ahead of the game on Sunday. Don't know whether that was, a masterstroke from the people of the club sort of putting that up, or whether it was just a coincidence, but really did sort of quash a few concerns, I think, amongst the fan base, that Mamardashvili was arriving and Alisson might be leaving. So he's signing next season, isn't he? And it looks like Chiesa's coming through the door from Italy as well. So, after weeks of what is the plan here, I think we're starting to see it on the incoming front.
Yeah, another stat here from Chiesa, compared to the other players in Serie A who play in the same position. Is the most carries, the most passes in that area. So, I think it's very encouraging. It's always interesting, isn't it, when a club like Juventus, why are they so willing to sell? But managers have styles, and Moss has come in and
they need the money.
Yeah,
I think they've been financially struggling for a number of years, haven't they? And it's not like Bayern Munich, when they sell a player, you start asking why, or Real Madrid. I think we know why, because he's a high earner and his contract's coming up.
I think an interesting comparison we were talking about before is signing right at the start of the Michael Edwards era, if you like, when it was still the transfer committee at that time. They signed Coutinho from Inter Milan, who'd gone there, had quite a bit of fanfare when he went there from Brazil, didn't get in the team, struggled a fair bit, and Liverpool obviously identified him as a player with a lot of potential, who for one reason or another wasn't quite fancied in Italy, brought him over for a decent price, and we all know how that went. So hopefully it can be it can follow the same lines. Elsewhere from Chiesa, Darwin Nunez has been handed a 5-match ban. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, it happened just before we come out to record, and he's been handed a 5-game ban from CONMEBOL, the South American football governing body, and it's basically from the mass brawl, I guess you'd call it, from when Uruguay were knocked out by Colombia in the Copa America last month. Ugly scenes, weren't they? Stuff you don't really want to see. Nunez was at the forefront of it, sort of scaling the railings and coming to his partner's honour. She was sort of caught up in that, and Nunez, was defending his family essentially, and that was the line. And he's been given a 5-match ban for those actions. He's one of 12 who've been sanctioned for their part in the unrest. It didn't look great, did it? I mean, you could sort of, I think anyone would understand him sort of jumping in to make sure that his partner was safe. But when he did a separate video of him threatening to hurl a chair at supporters, and that was sort of taken out of his hands by someone else who was in the Uruguay contingent, that didn't look great. Liverpool spoke to him. They spoke to Uruguay Football Federation to establish basically what it was all about, and we haven't really heard too much of an internal sanction for Nunez. He's sort of just quietly gone about his business this summer since coming back, and a 5-game ban for Uruguay might be beneficial to Liverpool. I'm not sure, but that's the state of play for him. He'll be disappointed, I'm sure, because he loves playing for Uruguay and is doing well under Bielsa. But that's, I guess, from Liverpool's perspective, it doesn't affect them, so it's not the worst outcome, I guess. Yeah,
it's not.
Certainly that's what the fans will be thinking anyway.
Certainly. Some news breaking that Juventus are close to agreeing a deal with Man United for Sancho, which would be a loan but then an obligation to buy. And again, that might explain their position on Chiesa.
Imagine those wages are going straight to Sancho.
Straight to Sancho, and you don't have to buy him until next summer, so the loan fee and everything else is covered. So I think, you see the parts falling into place. Before we go, going to be a busy couple of days for you. Champions League draw tomorrow.
Probably. Champions League draw tomorrow, the revised format. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shapes up. And then Friday, Arne Slot, due to speak to us at 9 a.m. and we'll still be here at 11 p.m, won't we? With our dominoes and whatever else we've got planned for deadline day. So busy few days. And I think Liverpool might. I'm not sure when I said that now, but I said I don't think Liverpool to be active. Expect Liverpool to be active now. I thought they might have just gone with what they had. But Monday's developments has sort of changed my mind on it now. And I think if they're willing to sort of go this late, to the wire, then I think they might still be looking around and seeing what's available.
I hate to say it, and hopefully he's not watching, but Doyley did say on Monday's pod that he thought there'd be some last-minute action for Liverpool. He said he had a hunch, and that hunch has proved to be correct. And like you, it makes you think, doesn't it, that perhaps once Chiesa falls into place and they've got that across the line. There's some rumours this morning for Cherky from Lyon, and again, you can sort of see why it would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we have to sort of get out of this mind state of what Liverpool would have done under Klopp.
Yeah,
I think now it's all better off, and it's a totally new regime, and you're waiting to see what the behaviour is around stuff like this final week of deadline, and it's certainly content to bring players in after the season started. So watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, John W. Henry is in the chat,
and
he says Darwin's ban made us a favour. He can work with Slot in the September international break, and I mean, I think in some ways you want him playing for Uruguay because he's playing well there. He takes a lot of confidence from that, but I think he's the type of player that could do with some time on the training pitch with his manager and learning tactically.
Yeah, and he hasn't had much of it, has he? Come back from Uruguay late and barely featured so far. So that in terms of being a sort of silver lining for him, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Gorsty, thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be streaming the Champions League draw live with Theo, and then we'll be back on Friday at some point.
You said Theo. I was thinking, am I down for this?
Theo's going to do that one. And then on Friday, we'll be back ourselves, probably joined by Doyley, looking at that press conference, looking ahead to what could be a busy deadline day. So it's going to be exciting. You may as well come stay in ours for the next few days. We're going to be seeing a lot of each other. Yeah. Thank you very much for tuning in. Give us a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Look out for those two lives over the next couple of days. Thanks for all your support. Give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you on Friday. Nice one. Take care.